Welcome everybody to the Wake Up Call channel. I have to do a video on this topic that I heard about called anti-tourism. And people need to connect the dots and realize when they're talking about the carbon footprint and all this stuff with the climate, remember they've pretty much given you this idea that anybody flying around in planes is the worst possible thing for the climate, right? Planes and cars, then how we consume food and how we dress, all those things, it all filters down to enslavement in your home. And the big thing that they've been pushing over the last couple of years I've talked about is anti-tourism. And now we're hearing about anti-tourism protests and the propaganda is being pumped out from the mainstream media that'll make you cringe. It is so laughable that pedestrians are in the streets protesting. What are they protesting? They're protesting people on vacation in their country because they don't want people there in their country. Why? Because the way that we're all living right now with the freedom to travel and do those things does not exist with the carbon footprint. Vacation time's over. Traveling is over. And they've been doing this for a while, planting seeds in your mind about you not needing to and shouldn't want to travel anymore. And how have we heard that? Well, how about stories like Boeing making people afraid to fly? How about stories about Pete Buttigieg and how travel delays keep happening, people's flights keep getting canceled, making it so people don't want to book flights anymore and go on vacation because they don't want to sit at the airport? How about the fact that we've seen all of these stories over the last couple of years come out of unhinged passengers on planes, confrontations and conflict on planes, right? Making people not want to travel. Well, here is the newest way that they're trying to make people not want to travel anymore. They're trying to gaslight people in countries to protest people who are flying into their countries. And this is going to spread because they tell you that, well, these are poor countries in poverty. Why should they be giving all this to people who are vacationing here when people's rent is increasing and people aren't living the way that they should be living while the country panders to vacationers, right? Well, this, of course, is a communist ideology. Watch this propaganda that is airing around the world right now. This is airing in the BBC, on BBC, this is airing in America, about anti-tourism and how civilians in Barcelona have water guns, are making demands, and they're trying to make it so that people won't travel to their country anymore. They said they want to put limits on tourism. Well, that sounds a lot like what Big Brother's been trying to do, right? So they create things like this, and then they want it to spread. And then they want people in America, in tourist cities, to do the same exact thing, like New York or California or Florida. And they put this out there. This story is only out there so that people see it. Monkey see, monkey do. That's why they put these stories out there. They're behind these stories. Somebody at the news didn't just say, hey, did you hear there was a protest in Barcelona? No, I didn't hear about it. Oh, well, there's a protest. What's the protest for? Well, they don't want people to vacation there anymore. Oh, that sounds like something we should air on the news. The entire news story I'm about to play for you is obviously pandering and catering to the locals and how they have it so bad and so rough, and vacationers are infringing on their place and they should go home and go away because poor them, right? This is the mindset that they want, and these are the things they put out there to convince you that things like tourism are now bad. Again, enslaving you in your home with the carbon footprint. Travel is no longer going to be a thing.
A water fight on the streets of Barcelona. Some locals spraying tourists with water guns as they ate at popular restaurants, sending visitors fleeing from their tables. Thousands of protesters walking through the city over the weekend, chanting "Tourists go home" and carrying signs with anti-tourist slogans.
Restoration and hotels is the group that makes really big money, but all the people are in a very poor situation and they don't have enough money to live. That's a problem.
Barcelona is one of the top tourist destinations in the world, home to iconic sites like La Sagrada Familia and Park Güell, in addition to beautiful beaches. Officials reporting more than 33 million people from all over the world visited the city in the first 5 months of 2024 alone. Tourism bringing in a whopping 9.6 billion euro in 2023, according to the Tourism Observatory of Barcelona. But some locals say mass tourism is not only overwhelming the city, but also making the cost of living unaffordable to its residents.
I would stress the declining quality of life for local residents, and that would include the increasing cost of housing, the noise, the litter, the displacement of long-term residents, and the relentless construction.
Rent in Barcelona has risen nearly 70% in just the last decade, according to Mayor Jaume Collboni. In June, the mayor announcing a plan to stop renewing permits for rentals used by foreign visitors by 2028 after saying a boom in short-term rentals is to blame. The city assuring the move would make 10,000 units available to locals in 4 years.
The last years, the city has turned completely for tourists, and what we want is a city for citizens and not in service of tourists.
A dilemma for a welcoming city to shift focus and take care of its own.
Guad Venegas joins us tonight from the Telemundo Center in Miami. So, Guad, people visiting Barcelona or planning to visit Barcelona in the months ahead, could they expect to see more of these protests and possibly be hit by these water guns?
Well, Tom, for the people that were at those establishments, it was at the wrong place at the wrong time, right? I mean, there's a lot of visitors in Barcelona. It's just unfortunate that they were right there when the protesters came. But this is a sign of that anti-tourism sentiment in Barcelona, which we expect to continue. It's not only the protests. There's also signs around the city that are asking tourists to go home. Now, the city has already approved increasing the tourist tax from 3.25 euro to 4 euro. That's a small increase. But again, it's another sign that Barcelona wants to limit the people that are coming into the city. And in the future, what we can expect is Barcelona to become a much more expensive destination for the tourists that do decide to go. And things are going to change, Tom. A lot of the people that visit this city do it because it's known to be a welcoming city with vibes from people that come from all over the world. That perhaps will change as local officials make these new changes to make it much more difficult for those that want to visit and more affordable for the people that live in Barcelona. So all of this should be kept in mind when someone is planning to go to the city, Tom.
So anti-tourism protests, thousands of protesters flooding the streets of Barcelona, expressing their mounting anger towards the perceived stranglehold on tourism. First time ever, right? People have been vacationing for a long time. All of a sudden, there's a problem with vacationing, right? How can we? Just like all of a sudden, every single day, there's just some major conflict going on in the world, right? People don't realize that this isn't normal. This isn't normal every single day to have this feeling of government overreach, this feeling of, oh my goodness, now what? Catastrophe here, catastrophe there, anger here, because they're doing it. They're gaslighting it. They're creating what we call global sabotage, order out of chaos. So the crowd of 3,000 people marched along the waterfront district under the rallying cry, enough, let's put limits on tourism, right? So if you understand the carbon footprint, and you understand why all these stories have come out about Boeing and traveling and Pete Buttigieg and how traveling is a disaster now and all the mandates that they put in 2020 about traveling, trying to see how many people would no longer travel, the airlines shutting down, social distancing on planes, this stuff's all been done by design. That was the precursor for the carbon footprint. I've talked about that many times over. So the 2,800 to 3,000 people who were protesting, I'm sure the majority of them, and you saw them in the news clip, right? I mean, we know that they're communists based on how they talk and how they look. This is what we're at now in our society. We can identify people's politics based on how they talk and how they act. So these people were likely, the majority of them, like we see with BLM and these other movements, placed there by the government. And then this story just somehow is making news in America. Why would this make news in America? Who in America cares about an anti-tourism protest in Barcelona? Well, they got to use their propaganda every single day to convince you of a different way to live. Remember, it's about controlling behaviors. Stories like this help control behaviors, and it helps groom behaviors because people see this and then they start going, you know what? Hey, I'm living like crap, and I live in a city that's expensive like New York. Then it's too expensive, and people shouldn't be allowed to come here while I'm paying this amount for my rent. I'm going to go out and protest and say, get out of my city. I'm going to do it in California. I'm going to do it in Florida. I'm going to do it in all these cities, right? Done by design. Monkey see, monkey do. So the people were waving signs with slogans like Barcelona is not for sale. Tourists go home. The protesters targeted popular tourist areas Like they have nothing better. They could take this time to, go get a job if they can't afford to pay their rent. But of course, that's the mindset they don't want you to have. Some even resorted to using water guns on unsuspecting holidaymakers enjoying meals outdoors. Isn't that considered assault this day and age? I mean, it's not by me, but by today's standards, I'm pretty sure if you breathe on somebody, it's assault, which again is New World Order enslavement. So chants of tourists out of our neighborhood echoed through the streets as protesters stopped in front of hotels. Housing prices have surged in the city. The high cost of living is a major sticking point for Barcelona residents. Housing prices have surged by 70% over the last decade, with rents in tourist hotspots like Barcelona and Madrid rising by a staggering 18%. Residents are blaming the influx of tourists as the key driver behind these skyrocketing costs, fundamentally altering the city's economic landscape. The city is taking steps to address residents' concerns. There is a plan in June to phase out all short-term rentals by 2028. The drastic move aims to curb housing costs and ensure Barcelona remains a livable city for its residents. The city also recently announced a ban on tourist apartment rentals, currently exceeding 10,000, with the goal of returning these properties to the local housing market. Local frustrations are reaching a boiling point. Protest groups like Friends of Nature of Tenor Life, ATAN, are planning further demonstrations, vowing to target main holidaymaker areas this summer. They maintain that their pleas for change have been ignored and urge residents to keep fighting against tourism. I mean, it's unbelievable. Tourism is supposed to help the economy, by the way. But okay, so they want to fight against tourism, and they believe it is detrimental to their way of life. Again, every time you see the news, do not believe what you are seeing. You don't think that they can pay 3,000 people a small amount of money to go and protest and stage these things? Of course they can. That's what they do. And even if some of those people are organically there, it doesn't matter. This is making the news to plant seeds in your head about behavior. What's good behavior? What's bad behavior? How you should live, how you shouldn't live. And they're making tourism and traveling something that you're not supposed to want to do. That way, when the carbon footprint is here, one of the big things on that carbon footprint is going to be vacation. They want to get you accustomed to not going on vacations, not flying anymore, not traveling anymore, because it's too big of a carbon footprint. It's too much for you to do every single year to go away. Maybe if you don't move out of your home for 364 days, maybe they'll let you take a drive across state lines for a day. How about that? That'll be your big vacation. Go to a lake that's probably filled with black goo. That's what they'll tell you will be your vacation, okay? All this stuff, again, this is how people need to watch the news and pay attention to the news. Every single thing out there is to formulate you. You're manufacturing you. That's what they're doing. It's manufactured news to manufacture your behavior. These stories, they literally make no sense. These are things that nobody should care about, but they don't say, why is this on the news? What are they trying to tell me? They watch it and they get programmed by it. And then suddenly, people in America will start protesting tourism. And people in other countries will start protesting tourism. And they make it so people are afraid or don't want to go to these places anymore because they don't want to get spat on by local people because, of course, I'm a tourist there. I don't think it's safe for my family. Or I don't want to go on a plane because Boeing's falling apart all of a sudden in midair. I don't want to go on a plane because people on the plane are having meltdowns and breakdowns, all done by design. In a new world order, there ain't no travel no more. You're enslaved. You're enslaved by your carbon footprint. And they're doing things like this to get you prepared for it so that when they tell you you can't travel anymore, you'll already be conditioned into saying, well, I don't want to travel anymore. I'm content. I'll put my Apple Vision Pro goggles on and I'll pretend I'm in Hawaii. I'll pretend I'm in Barcelona. Then I'll be just as happy because that's exactly where this is going. Enslavement in your home via technology. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all well. God bless you and your families as always.